Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're back to Kelly Reichardt, who strives to teach us that Oregon's had a corner on weird since 1845 with her 2010 Western Meek's Cutoff. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And terrifying new thing, Andy. The Next Reel is officially on Patreon.
Whoa.
Wow. What do you make of this Patreon thing?
You know, if it's one thing I keep hearing from people, it's Andy, Pete, how can we start throwing money at you? I mean, really, that's what they all are saying, right?
You are a dynamic profiteer, Andy Nelson. You are a capitalist's capitalist. Why can't we throw our money at you?
They're going to be making my statue on Wall Street soon.
Of course, all of these things are said by no one ever. But we've been doing this show for a long time, since 2011, and we've never had a place for direct support, for like straight up public radio style support. And I know I am a supporter of a number of podcasts and YouTube creators on Patreon myself, and it just got to be a little bit painful that we've been doing this for so long, and we are working so hard to kind of create and cultivate a community, and it is becoming notable that we are doing it for free. Don't you think? Like, we're starting to notice and feel some financial pain points with the things that we want to do, that we want to grow and want to do all sorts of new and wonderful things. And it's starting to hurt. It's much more than it was, when we first turned on the mics in 2011 and started talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark, and now we're trying to bring new people in, and we're trying to support the people who are creating with us, and frankly recoup some costs. And so that's why we are on Patreon.
All we're doing is putting it out there. I mean, if people want to contribute. If they don't, or if they aren't able to at the time, I mean, it's fine. I mean, we're doing this because we love it. We want to keep doing it. Like Pete said, this is really just a way to kind of show us that you appreciate it and that you're enjoying it. And it's certainly nothing we expect, but if you can throw something in there, check it out.
That's right. We had the way it is set up on patreon.com/thenextreel. At this point, there are a number of tiers, like there always are. You don't have to do a tier. You can, do anything you want. Many Patreon, there are two ways to support on Patreon. You can either do it by the publication, like if you support somebody who produces a YouTube video once a month, you can support every time they produce a video. That doesn't really work for us because we tend to produce a lot of shows, whether it's, 1, 2, sometimes more a week. And so, right now we have a monthly model set up over there, and it starts at just $1 a month. So if you want to throw something in, but as Andy said, we would much rather you make sound financial decisions than support us. So if supporting us also means you are making sound financial decisions, we appreciate it. And so anything you want to give, the better. There are a couple of perks at different levels. Things like, anybody who joins us on Patreon is automatically invited to join the back of house Slack channel that we've got going on there. So if you want to chat with frequent contributors, commenters, hosts on the show, please do that. You will automatically get an invite to Slack. You can there is a tier where you can join us and get the behind the scenes draft podcast feed. If you don't like getting the shows every Tuesday and Thursday, then you can join and we'll give you the drafts podcast feed. So you may hear us cough and wheeze and say long-winded things that we later come to our senses and cut. You'll get all that delicious podcast errata. And so there's that's another thing. There's even a tier, and there aren't many of these. There is even a tier in which Tommy Handsome will sing a song for your voicemail outgoing message. And let me tell you, the delightful part, we haven't told Tommy Handsome that he's doing this. So this should be a surprise for everyone. There you have it.
It will be fun. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of fun.
Lots of fun. We're also, we've for those who have ever been curious about merchandise, we're still thinking about merchandise, updating the merchandise, and I'm sure that Patreon members will get some sort of a perk when merchandise hits the shelves again. So there you go. That's it. All right. Enough about us and money. What do you think?
Yeah, let's keep moving on forward.
All right, we're plowing in. We got a blot spot this week from the show, Ben Lott, who Patreon members can also talk to in his Blotspot channel on the private Slack group. What about that? I've already done product placement.
There you go. I definitely cared about the main character in Wendy and Lucy. Her struggles were familiar to me, even if her situation was not. I just have trouble connecting on a deeper level when I'm given so little information or backstory. The story plotted at a very slow pace, and I only tolerated it because I thought some big reveal was coming. When the end was depressing instead of illuminating, I was seriously turned off. Not a bad film, just not one for me. Your rank 275, my rank 241.
I tolerated it because I thought there was a reveal coming. Man, wait till you see Meek's Cutoff.
That's right.
That's interesting. And I think mirrors some of our comments last week as well. We did get a series of let's say, yes, I think Love Letters to the Book of Eli
Right.
over on Facebook. How do we do?
Yeah, listener of the show, Ron McCall, sent us a few notes over on Facebook about how we kind of missed the mark about Book of Eli. And it was actually pretty interesting. I will say there's a lot that he wrote here, so we're not going to read the whole thing. But, I think, let me just read this first part here. You both are missing the mark with Book of Eli, especially with what is taking you out of the film. It's not about being believable or realistic, whether or not Eli can do what he does while being blind, fighting, navigating his way, interacting with others, etc. It's about suspending belief or believing, depending on your beliefs, if that makes sense. The point is, God is using him as a vessel. He states that something led him to the Bible. And, okay, so I think that there's something to that, and I know that Eli brings that up throughout the film, how he's been doing that and all that stuff. I definitely know it's in the movie. I still found it kind of hard to believe, but it did actually kind of make me go, it's definitely worth a rewatch. I mean, it is a really fun film to watch. So if nothing else, I'm just like, you know what, I want to watch it again just to kind of think about it a little bit more as like the hand of God being there kind of guiding Eli along and making these choices and everything. I realistically, I don't think that's so much my issue. And like I said, if Eli was wearing glasses the whole time, I don't think I would have had as much a problem. It's the fact that when Denzel takes his glasses off and he doesn't seem blind,
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah, that was actually my problem too. I really appreciate that he noted that symbolism. And frankly, as people who watch films and tend to be, work to be observant of symbols, particularly religious symbols, we should have talked more about that because it's a really good catch. My challenge is, like yours, I still find it hard to believe because of the performance, the way this character was performed. I don't think it actually makes good even on this sort of newly reframed promise. But even more importantly, I think it's really hard to watch a film like this with sort of, or at least it demonstrates for me why it's so hard to watch a film with completely new eyes. It's hard for me to unsee what I've already internalized as the challenges of Book of Eli. And this is a film I really enjoy. So anyway, I think the more important part that he wrote, which I noticed you didn't read, is that... What?
Damn it! 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, no. I just want this out because I think it's important. He says, in the end, Pete, just know on the rarish occasions when you and Andy disagree, I side with you 51% of the time. Shush! Don't tell him I said that. Asterisk margin of error 2%. Whatever. We'll disregard that last point. Let's just celebrate the fact that I've got 2 weeks in a row, baby.
Yeah. Why I oughta not
Andy,
feeling the
time.
love, man.
Thank you very much, Ron. It's love the comments, man. Thank you so much for writing in, and great to have you over on Slack. Okay, let's. I think it's time, Andy. Let's do trailers.
I think you should go first because I've pulled the red band rule the last 2 weeks.
Dominated every single week.
Yep.
My film, Andy, is The Journey. This is a highly, when I gather by the YouTube trailer comments, a highly fictionalized account of the story of the political enemies of Northern Ireland. This is the Sinn Féin Martin McGuinness and Democratic Unionist Party leader Ian Paisley. Now, it took, what I understand, it took, and I don't know, I don't know anything about the real history here. I haven't looked into it at all. I know that it is referred to as the Troubles. It is an incredibly challenging and deadly 20-year period or more in Northern Ireland and this sort of search for peace. And all of that is compressed into a car ride. It's essentially a road movie where these two political leaders are put in a car and are driven around Northern Ireland until they come to terms with each other and learn to appreciate each other and bring peace. Now, what I understand is that didn't happen. I'm picking this trailer for a couple of reasons. First, John Hurt is in it. Oh, man, I miss John Hurt. Right? Second, Timothy Spall plays Ian Paisley, and man, does he look great. Lost a ton of weight. He just looks great. And the great Colmini plays Martin McGuinness and also looks great. I think these guys look great together. I'm very excited to see them on screen together. And some of the comments on YouTube, which I think YouTube is really known for its reasoned and subtle and nuanced commentary, they called just the general style of performance some really mean things, which, again, surprised me. So I disagree with it. I think it actually looked great. But the bigger thing is, and we usually have challenges when, when true stories are so heavily fictionalized, there is some challenge in there for us to watch these films. And my pitch with this trailer in particular is this not just the kind of story we probably need right now? That has the door opened to me for this kind of highly fictionalized story. And there was one comment from somebody who says, and again, YouTube is also known for its credibility. This person says, I knew some of these people, and the story that this film tells was not actually that far from the truth. So, I don't know. But between now and when this film launches, or when this film is released in the United States, I'm very excited to learn more about it. It was a part of history where I was too young to really have a dog in this particular fight. And so, I'm interested in learning more. It's got an incredible, from the looks of it, incredible cast, directed by Nick Hamm, written by Colin Bateman. This looks like the first kind of big thing from Nick Hamm and Colin Bateman. I don't know much of their work, but they appear to be local guys. They are from Belfast and Bangor, County Down, Northern Ireland, UK. There you go. What do you think? Did this appeal to you?
It does. I feel bad because I am not. I'm a little blind to this little piece of history. I think I kind of missed the whole thing. Although it wasn't that long ago. You make it sound like it happened when we were kids. It was. My understanding is it was 2006.
Oh, that was not my understanding. I thought it was from through 98, like 78 through 98.
Looking on Nick Hamm's Wikipedia page, it says the drama is a fictionalized account of political enemies Ian Paisley and Martin McGuinness's real journey to peace and friendship in the 2006 St. Andrews Agreement.
Interesting. Okay.
But see, that's why I love films like this, because it does illuminate a piece of history that I'm not aware of, like Hidden Figures, things like that. I really enjoy. Yeah. Despite the fact that there may be inaccuracies in the way it's told, I think oftentimes it's the spirit in which it's told that it's trying to get across the realities of the situation, even if they change some of the facts. So I'm inclined to see this one. It does look pretty interesting and enjoyable. Interesting, just reading about it. It sounds like the original cast, what they were planning to move forward with, was Liam Neeson and Kenneth Branagh.
What do you think of that?
That's a really interesting pairing.
An interesting pair.
I love that idea, but obviously that didn't move forward with that. Nick Hamm, I guess he did the cult or the film that kind of got some cult acclaim in 2001, The Hole, with Thora Birch and Keira Knightley, which I don't know if I feel like I've heard of this one, but I don't actually know. I don't know what it is that I heard about it, other than I think it was because it was really Keira Knightley's kind of breakout film. But anyway, that's something that he was behind. I don't really know much else about the filmmakers though, so I am curious about this and the piece of history. So I will say though, I really had a hard time watching Timothy Spall and his fake teeth in the trailer. I could not stop staring at them. It just looked so fake. So
I hear you, but you got to look at the real guy before you make that kind of judgment. No, he looks just like him.
I don't know, the teeth. It's no matter what you say, the teeth still throw me. So I'm curious to see how it comes when I'm staring at him for an hour and a half. So
you're the worst. That's gonna be what throws you for this movie. That and Denzel can actually see. Nobody bought that. Ugh. Note to self: don't ever see a movie with Andy.
That's right.
Well, Andy, we cannot see this movie together when it releases officially sometime this year, and I wish I could tell you more. It is already played at the San Francisco International Film Festival. It opens in the UK May 5th, 2017, so it's coming, but no specific release date for The Journey here in the US.
Well, that sounds great. My trailer, Pete?
That sounds great.
That sounds great. Let me just move past yours. Oh, no. But it's just because I'm so excited, Pete. Mine is Thor Ragnarok, which the teaser dropped today, which it's really kind of a trailer. I mean, they give you a lot of the story. They give you a lot of the images of characters and everything. And I've got to say, man, I got so excited about this movie. It looks so stinking fun. It looks like they took a little dash of Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of some of that vibe. You got just kind of that great comedy that Thor has shown throughout kind of the different films that he's been in. Taika Waititi, as soon as I knew that he was directing this, I just got super excited because I really enjoy some of the films that he's made. I think he's a really creative director and a lot of fun, and I think he brings a lot of fun to this. And I think Marvel has done a great job of finding directors who bring fun to their movies. Now, here's a little quiz for you, Pete. Of the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what number is Thor Ragnarok? Can you... do you want to venture a guess?
So wait a minute. Are you asking me in the whole series of Marvel movies?
Yeah.
Or in just the Thor movies?
It's easy in the Thor movies, which one it is. In the whole series of movies in the MCU, what installment is this film? Do you know?
Jesus, is this like 19?
It's close. This is 17. This was the 17th movie that these guys will have cranked out. And it's impressive that I feel like they're often moving in directions that feel stronger and better. And this is really exciting for the Thor franchise because I really have enjoyed the Thor films despite some of the issues that we've had with them. But this one just looks, I mean, this is kind of a Thor taking place in his world. I mean, it's Ragnarok. I mean, this is kind of, this is the story when Kate Blanchett, who is playing, what's her name? Hela. She is the ruler of Hell and Niflheim, and she was released from her prison, and she's been, I guess, pretty pissed because she's been imprisoned for so long, and now she basically says she gets this weapon and she's able to destroy Thor's hammer, and she takes over Ragnarok and imprisons Thor. And I can't quite tell from the teaser exactly what's going on, but I think that she pretty much sells Thor to Valkyrie or trades him to Valkyrie, who is working for a Grandmaster played by Jeff Goldblum, who looks crazy in this trailer. It's just like perfect. And he is like this guy, like Game Master guy, who puts Thor in the gladiator ring opposite none other than Hulk, who pops up, which was super exciting to see. So I just got so excited watching this. It looks so stinking fun. It just has so much life and energy. Of course, we have Tom Hiddleston returning as Loki. Benedict Cumberbatch pops up as Doctor Strange. Idris Elba as Heimdall. I already mentioned Kate Blanchett, Chris Hemsworth, of course. Carl Urban is back. Anthony Hopkins, Tessa Thompson, Mark Ruffalo as Hulk. It's just a huge cast. Ray Stevenson. So I'm very excited. I think it's going to be just super, super fun. What did you think?
I didn't expect you to to loose your enthusiasm on this trailer. You have really brought your A game in terms of your childlike whimsy.
Once he was out of that box, Pete, I've not been able to get him back in.
You can't get him back in. Now, I'm with you. I am looking forward to it. I thought the trailer was funny, and it did all the things. Thor has never been my favorite property, and so I was not as giddy as you were when the trailer started. But what I really like about this trailer is that I feel like this film at least looks like it's really owning what Thor is in my head, right? It feels like the most easily identifiable Thor film of those that have come before, right? We're just going to go totally open, flamboyant. We're going to be bright colors and big planetary battles and some, frankly, a little bit questionable, maybe unfinished CG in the trailer. We're just going to go all in and go for the humor. And then they did the bit when Hulk comes out and he says, "Yes, I know this guy. He's a friend from work." If there was ever going to be a line that really, hooked me, that's the one. I thought that was super funny and charming. So I'm looking forward to it. In terms of what's coming in 2017-18, Black Panther is still at the top of my list. Spider-Man shortly after that. But Thor is, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, it's better. I'm looking forward to it more now than I was before I saw this trailer. So trailer worked.
Check. Well, this is going to be, over the course of a week, it's pretty much going to surround the entire globe, starting in Italy, October 25th, ending in Hong Kong, Turkey, and the U.S. on November 3rd. It's just going to circle the globe, and everybody will be buried in Thor Ragnarok. So there you go. Looking forward to this one.
Here's a tough question that was posed to me by a listener of the show. If you had the opportunity to see only one MCU film through the course of 2018, which one would it be? And just for reference, I'm going to give you the choices if you don't have them in front of you. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, May 5th. Spider-Man Homecoming, July 7th. Thor Ragnarok, November 3rd. Black Panther, February 16th. Avengers Infinity War, May 4th, 2018. Ant-Man and the Wasp, July 6th, 2018. If you could see only one, which would it be?
That's super mean.
Yep.
I feel like I would say, I feel like I should say Avengers Infinity War to close that loop. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I know is going to be super, super fun, and I'm really excited for that one. Spider-Man's like my favorite comic book character. I feel like I want to pick that one. But weirdly, I actually feel like I'm going to say Ant-Man and the Wasp because I loved Ant-Man so much more than I ever thought I would, and I knew nothing about that character. Just so much fun, and I feel like weirdly, like I'm really excited that they are making the sequel to the Ant-Man movie. So I weirdly feel like that's what I would pick, which I don't know if is the right choice, but that's what I'm going to say.
I appreciate your choice, Andy. That's a bold choice.
I know it is. I know.
I feel like I may be equally bold, and that you didn't even mention it as even an underdog on your list is Black Panther. That's the one I'm most curious about. I feel like all the other movies, I pretty much know what I'm going to get. And Black Panther, I just don't. I don't really know what I'm going to get. So I think I'm most excited for that one. Thank goodness we don't actually have to make this Sophie's choice, so to speak.
No, absolutely.
Says Pete, completely diminishing Sophie's choice.
I actually do really want to see Black Panther too. I just know so little about that character or that world that I guess that's why I didn't pick that one, because I just like Black Panther other than the brief bits popping up in Civil War. I just don't know anything about Black Panther.
Well, and to your point about Avengers Infinity War closing out that loop, I wonder just how close that loop's going to be. This 2019 is a May 3rd release date for an untitled Avengers film that is once again directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, that is once again written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. It doesn't really feel like we're closing out anything on that series. So,
yeah, it's going to be kind of I'm guessing a kickoff for a Phase 4, perhaps?
Yeah, whatever it is, Andy. We're all just playing our parts now. This was written long before we got here. I am at your command.
In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. And now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever.
Well, if it's riches you're after, there's riches aplenty. That's the truth. You mark my words.
Meek's Cutoff, Andy, 2010. We're back with our friend Kelly Reichardt, writer John Raymond, who did the screenplay, and stars Michelle Williams again, Bruce Greenwood as the titular Stephen Meek. Will Patton is back, and he's still fixing wheeled vehicles. Zoe Kazan, Paul Dano, Shirley Henderson, Neil Huff, some other folks. This was... it is the story. It's a loosely fictionalized story of settlers traveling through the Oregon high desert in 1845 with what they imagine to be, and slowly learn to be, a fraudulent guide. And they are in some harsh conditions, and they run out of some important, liquids. and therefore there is stress. How did Meek's Cutoff hit you, Andy? How did it hit you, particularly as a follow-up to last week's film, Wendy and Lucy?
It's interesting. I had only heard high praise for Meek's Cutoff going into it. So I kind of was expecting to get something much bigger than Wendy and Lucy. I mean, that got a lot of high praise too, but I guess it just seemed like Meek's Cutoff was like something that I just heard on a number of critics who really just loved it and everything. And so I was kind of expecting something that kind of a little bigger, especially because it's a period piece. There's a lot going on in the particular story that they're telling here. But I ended up feeling like I mean, it's funny. All I could think of when I finished this was, when you teach writers or when writers learn, they say, okay, get in late and get out early. When you're writing a scene, because there's a lot of fluff at the beginning and end that you often can cut out because you just don't need it. It's just padding for your scene. I kind of felt like the filmmakers here took that to heart. They just kind of did it for the whole film. And I just felt like they really, they took this whole concept of a storytelling in media res, where you kind of, starting in the middle, and they just kind of left in media res also. So we get this story where it's already started. We are already in the process of this wagon train on this cutoff that they're taking through the desert to get around something or to move faster along the Oregon Trail, something like that. And the movie ends before we even get to the conclusion of the story. So for me, it was pretty unsatisfying. I wasn't very thrilled by the film going experience. I can kind of see what the filmmakers were trying to do, but on the whole, I was unsatisfied.
The way I was looking at it was that there's something different between dramatic context, which is what this film to me is longing for, and historical context, which is what this film delivers. We see this family going through the struggles in a historical context, which I get the feeling that they want us to care about because history was challenging, and look at the struggles of our forefathers and mothers and look at the kinds of things that happen on the road. But in the absence of, but that doesn't inherently or intrinsically create a dramatic context. And I feel like this film is pretty much totally void of dramatic context.
Absolutely. Even when we have a moment where Michelle Williams' character, Emily, kind of confronts Meek with her shotgun to prevent him from killing the Indian, I just didn't feel anything. I didn't care. I mean, it was kind of an interesting moment, I guess, but I just didn't, there was no connection I had with these people. I understood that they were frustrated with Meek and that they couldn't tell if he was lost and wouldn't admit it, or if he kind of knew where he was going but wasn't very good at it, or what. I mean, but the fact that that it leads to that moment, it's just like, oh, okay. I mean, it really just, the whole thing kind of fell flat for me.
Is the film missing a third act?
It's hard to kind of pinpoint that when you're looking at this film, and maybe it's just going to be something in general with Kelly's films. Is she even using, or John as the writer, using kind of the 3-act structure when they're putting a story together? It just feels very much like they're just kind of telling this little piece of story. And I mean, it does kind of feel anticlimactic. And I mean, I felt when I watched the film, that line that you used to kind of start us off, I actually felt like was kind of exactly what they were trying to say here. You know, the whole thing, we're all just playing our part now. This was written long before we got here. I kind of got like, oh, that's kind of what she's trying to say. And now we end on a shot, of the Indian walking by himself. That was kind of, I guess, maybe where they were going with it. But I don't know. It's like, is that enough for a climax of a film? Is that kind of constitute a third act? For me, it didn't. And so I can see what you're saying, that it doesn't feel like there is a third act, but I was just like, is there even an act in here?
I definitely, I don't know, if you step back from the dramatic context and we look again just at the historical context, some of it is the story, sort of the cultural story of the role of women, and the transformation that women have been, going through over generations is sort of put under a microscope on this journey across the Oregon Desert. And I found that interesting. It wasn't enough, but I found it interesting that this was a story of transformation of these women, the wives, who went from eavesdropping on their husband to becoming sort of a much more active, taking a much more active role in their own sort of destiny, the destiny of their companions and their travelers. And I thought that was interesting. But again, it wasn't enough to sustain my interest throughout the film. It took a couple of tries to get through it.
As the story progressed, it made me wonder what was really going on in the real story with Meek and these settlers. Like, how much of this did they actually pull from the real story? Because when you research it, it says it's loosely based on this historic incident. So how loose was it? I was curious. The whole idea, you've got this moment. It's funny just kind of researching it and looking stuff up about this particular journey. And this whole Meek Cutoff, it is a real thing. Stephen Meek, you can go look at read all about him. There's all sorts of stuff written about him. But there's a moment that you had mentioned in our notes about how Paul Dano's character is carving Lost onto the wood, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I really didn't know why, other than, was that a weird screenwriter's way to say, hey, we're lost, without saying we're lost? It seemed kind of odd to me that that's the direction they chose to do that. But then at the same time, when you're looking at Meek, the kind of images and stuff from Meek Cutoff, there actually is a carving in some wood that there's a photo of this where somebody actually carved it. And I thought that was actually interesting, although it's completely, it doesn't say lost. It's the date, 1845. It looks like it says 1845 Josta Meeks. And I don't know what that actually means. I don't know what Josta is, but it's interesting. It's like they threw that in because it's historical, but there's no context for it. And again, that just goes back to the just general problems of the film.
One of the things I think they do really well is allow the atmosphere, the landscape, to become an active character in the film. We talk about this sometimes, where the setting is a sort of mysterious, activist character, and they really do. And I don't spend a lot of time in this part of Oregon. If you're not familiar with it, it's way out east, and Oregon is, it's not the biggest of states, but it's big enough that we actually have a number of different really dramatic climates, like this sort of Westfall, unincorporated kind of Harney County, Malheur County. These places, range from farms, ranches, to just straight up high arid desert, and I feel like they did a nice job of showing, of demonstrating that, and the role that the terrain has on the journey. It's only when you kind of look at where this place is on a map and look at how far it is from ultimately where civilization ended up, which is mostly, near the coast of Oregon, you realize how far these people were from anything, right? Relating to lush green, the things that you normally think of Oregon, terrain. So I liked that part of the story. But again, I feel like I have a sense of that because I live here and because I know the terrain of my state. I wonder, how did that hit you? Did it mean anything to you? Did you find that of substance?
No, and that was what was so frustrating. As a period piece that's based on fact, it's like I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. But I think it goes to what Kelly and John were really trying to accomplish with this film. They weren't really setting out to tell a story of, like, the true story of Meek's Cutoff. They were just really telling kind of a period piece that was really reflective of how difficult it was to take these journeys. That's really kind of what they were doing. And if that's what they were doing, why use the real story of Meek's Cutoff in the first place? Why not just tell a fictional story of life on the Oregon Trail and how hard it was? For me, it was so frustrating because I couldn't really learn anything about Meek's Cutoff from the film Meek's Cutoff. I had to go read about it after the fact. And, I don't know. I guess that was just, that frustrated me.
So John Raymond again is behind the script. Do you get a sense for how, any additional points on sort of his narrative structuring of the film? And again, particularly in comparison to the strange kind of joint writing partnership they had on Wendy and Lucy. I mean, what's your sense of the overall narrative? For me, this really felt much more like a short story than a movie.
I was curious if this was something that he had been working on as a short story and couldn't quite get it to work, and it's just like, oh, you know what, I'll just write this as a script, or exactly kind of what the origin was, because it wasn't something that was in any of his short story books. This was an original screenplay that he had written. Maybe it was just a piece of history that he was interested in and thought it'd be interesting to tell this story. Again, I just don't. I mean, I appreciate the way that elements happen within the film. I actually found it interesting enough to kind of go along for the ride, so to speak. I liked kind of some of the scenes, some of the character interactions, the way that people spoke felt it had kind of an authentic feel to it. I enjoyed all of those elements with it. I just didn't feel like there was a good sense of connective tissue really tying everything together. I didn't feel like there was a good way to really get a sense of who these characters were. Like you said, I didn't know who to care for very much. It was, other than them mumbling about how they didn't trust Stephen Meeks and that the men are over there deciding, if they're gonna hang him or whatever they were doing, and going to the ending when it's just like, they're still on their journey. I didn't feel like, I don't know, it's like they were trying to do a story. I guess I don't understand what the point of this story was. Like, why did they choose this chunk to tell?
This is another minimalist film, in terms of Kelly Reichardt's style, and I certainly get that. I worry a little bit that I'm lying. I'm not really worried. I think that the minimal style impacts our ability to learn, as you say, anything about the actual period that we're trying to assess here. But I also wonder if there was ever really an intention, and I found nothing on this, if there was an intention to teach anything historical about this, or if that's just the setting just became a vehicle to demonstrate the sort of diversity of characters and the general sort of arc of social good in this group in this time.
Well, if you look at what we talked about a lot last week with Wendy and Lucy, it really boiled down to the minimalist storytelling style used to emphasize the characters, right? I mean, that really kind of was her focus in Wendy and Lucy, was really getting into that internal struggle of Wendy and her journey to survive and to find Lucy. In this particular film, I don't know. I guess I thinking about that and what characters I really start getting a sense of. I mean, you do get little bits of the character. So I will say, the minimalist style that Kelly obviously likes to work in, it does allow for some character moments. Weirdly, though, I found myself so much more connected to Wendy and her journey than I did to any of the characters here. They were all, there was kind of a realistic sense to them, but it wasn't anything like they chose character moments that I wasn't able to really connect with. Like, I was kind of fascinated watching the scene where Emily is throwing bits of furniture out of the back of their wagon, as she and her husband Solomon are talking about kind of what to get rid of to lighten the load. They throw out the grandfather clock, they throw out a rocking chair. It was an interesting little scene, and I liked that, like, they depicted that moment in time of having to make these decisions about what to get rid of so that you can lighten the wagon, so that your cattle don't die, so that you can actually keep moving along and not die yourself. But again, there wasn't a good context for it. It just kind of happens. And while I enjoy the moments of the characters there, it never connected me to the story or to their real struggle.
I will say that was one of my favorite sequences, if only because of the way it was shot, right? Shot sort of over her shoulder, through the wagon, and the long lingering choice to stay on the rocking chair as it sort of gets smaller and smaller on the horizon behind us for just a little bit too long, I thought was a really great choice. And some of those little treatments were particularly interesting in what is otherwise a fairly static, we'll talk about the camera choices, but a fairly static camera. Let's talk about first shot, last shot.
Yeah, the first shot, I will say I really enjoyed the opening title card where it looked like the title had actually been stitched into leather or something.
Yeah.
Meek's Cutoff and Oregon 1845 stitched. But then we cut to, it's a nice wide shot of the wagon train rolling through a big creek.
And the last shot, our friendly Native American walks alone, directly away from camera. Very wide shot of the scrubby high Oregon desert. That's really the end. And it's, again, I think it's a straight hard cut to credits, right?
No, it dissolves.
Or is it long? It's one of those long dissolves. Really,
it's not
long
quite as long.
But
it's not as long as the long one, but yeah, it's long.
Yeah. So there we have it. Is there a nice connection between the journey here? Does this give us a great narrative cycle between the first and the last shot?
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be grasping at straws here because I just don't know exactly what she was going for here. But in the beginning, you have the whole team, all the different people in the group kind of cutting across. You see everybody as they kind of roll through this creek across to the other side. In the end, you get this Native American who's kind of walking them away. And, Meek's last line is talking about how, we're following him. He's the one now who's kind of in charge of all of us, and his decisions are going to be making we're either going to be live or die based on the choices that the Native American makes. So to that end, it's like, okay, so it ends on the solo shot of the Native American walking away. So it's like, so is he representative of the whole group now? I'm not sure. I don't know if I feel like there's a reason. And actually, I really liked that last shot. It was a really kind of beautiful shot, but I just don't know if I really saw the connection.
I'm with you. It's lovely, but I don't get it. Or at least I'll say there's nothing that really was intuitively easy to grasp. The casting, again, was done by Laura Rosenthal, and we've got Michelle Williams on board as Emily Tetherow.
Yeah, not a lot to say here. I think that it's interesting the way that they wrote it. Again, nicely based on kind of the giving us a sense of the history. The women were kind of not speaking as much as the men. When they were speaking, it was mostly in and amongst themselves or quietly to their husband or something like that. And I thought it was pretty interesting the way that they portrayed that. And Michelle Williams, I thought, she did a great job in this part for what it was.
I didn't connect with her as much as I did in the more contemporary Wendy and Lucy. I found it harder to buy her in this period. And I'm not sure if that's a function of, script or a function of just, I know her too well in other things or what, but I had a hard time understanding her struggle, as a character. So, and it didn't really feel like a Michelle Williams movie, right? I mean, I came into this thinking, well, this was much more of an ensemble piece than I expected it to be.
Just a couple notes about her is first, I just kind of cheekily wrote down that, well, at least she speaks more than Jason Bourne did in his last film.
Yeah, that's actually very funny.
Wasn't saying much because she just there's not a lot to her part. It's a lot of just kind of being and doing throughout this film. Also, to your point about her, a better sense that she was kind of really the one leading the story. The movie poster always is kind of I don't know. It struck me as a really odd movie poster because it's kind of this weird yellow color, and she's it's the shot of her holding her gun as she's pointing it at Meek, but it's kind of a drawing of it, and I never quite figured out exactly what they were going for with the poster. It was just kind of strange. But again, it's like, hey, it's Michelle Williams. Check out this Michelle Williams movie. is exactly what the poster seems to be advertising. But like you said, it's not. It really is kind of just this ensemble story of this group trucking along.
Well, is what it is. Bruce Greenwood, on the other hand, is the most interesting thing in the film, for my money.
Yeah, and I would love to have seen a story of Meek's Cutoff that really gave a lot more meat to all these characters, especially his, because I really wanted more of him. He was such a fascinating character. And Bruce Greenwood's just such a great actor. And this was like the last thing I expected to see him in, was playing this giant, just a hairy, kind of a trapper explorer sort of guy.
I wanted what I wanted out of this film, once he came out of the tent and kind of clears his throat and spits and adjusts his pants, and you really don't know that it's him through all the hair and the beard. I mean, he just looks great. What I realized I wanted about 15 minutes into the movie is I want an unreliable narrator that is Meek's, and I want him telling the story of Meek's Cutoff the way he would tell it if he's really a fraud who doesn't know where he's going. Like, that's the movie I want to see. And this was not that movie, but the Stephen Meek that I wanted was in there.
Oh, yes. I agree with that much.
The rest of everybody, with the exception of maybe Zoe Kazan and Paul Dano, I sort of munged together in my mind. They were all frontier people in long dresses and dirty clothes, and I didn't make a real connection with them. They were interchangeable. It was only in looking up some of these folks afterwards that I realized, for example, Shirley Henderson as Glory White, she was moaning Myrtle, man.
I know, I saw that too. That was the
was
exact
awesome.
credit that I clicked with. Yep.
It was fantastic. Been in a number of other things, and I think she was fine in this film. But again, because I didn't care, I didn't make much of a connection with her. Any notes on Shirley?
No, and in fact, I don't know if I have any notes on anybody. And weirdly, I think other than Bruce Greenwood, I would lump Michelle Williams into that munge of everybody. Yeah. Michelle Williams, Shirley Henderson, Neil Huff, Paul Dano, Zoe Kazan, Tommy Nelson, Will Patton, Rod Rondeau. They all kind of played their part, and it was minimal. It was it was interesting to see, but other than Bruce Greenwood, none of them stood out to me.
Well, then let's talk about getting it made, Andy.
The cinematography was by Christopher, how would you say that? Blauvelt?
Blauvelt. Yeah. I think it's actually Blauvelt.
Oh, whoa. He needs to do a Bond movie.
Right?
What did you think of the cinematography?
I often have this challenge sort of between cinematography and editing. And so I feel like I have to lump my commentary together. There is something this film it's telling the story that doesn't have a lot of variety to it from dramatic beat to dramatic beat. And the combination of that with a camera that largely doesn't move, that is adept at showing large landscapes, that takes great time to show space, to show the wagon train moving across the horizon, or to show medium shots of people walking, or of these sort of reverse tracking shots where people are walking toward the camera for long periods of time, and editing choices that, again, this was edited by Kelly Reichardt herself, that really leverage those long cuts with long dissolves and few cuts. And I find that combination to be deadly for my attention. As beautiful as it is to sort of watch the first 15 minutes, I think it's lovely. It's tough for me to stay attuned to the film because there's nothing visually that keeps me moving with it. When there's nothing in the story that's keeping me hooked, there's got to be something in the camera that keeps moving. And I just didn't get it in this film. I thought it was lovely. It was way too dark, and man, I wish they had taken advantage of the widescreen because the aspect ratio was miserable.
Yeah, so many strange choices here. I mean, I did like the color tinting that they did with the whole film, where it just kind of had kind of that, it's not really sepia, but it was just kind of this yellowish tint to everything that just made it all feel dry and pretty blech, which I thought was very fitting actually for the whole film. But yeah, when it was dark and like you have one lantern lighting the scene, I mean, it's like really dark. Not quite as muddy looking as it was in Wendy and Lucy, but still dark. And yeah, but the aspect ratio was such a strange choice. And it goes to a lot of the decisions, I think, that that surround this film. Why did they go with a 4:3 aspect ratio instead of really highlighting the landscape with a nice widescreen image? I think it was because in my head, I hear Kelly saying, this is an older aspect ratio. Nobody uses 4:3 anymore. Let's use it to signify an older time. We're telling a story about an older period. Let's use an older aspect ratio. Let's use this older style of cutting where a lot of stuff is played in these single shots rather than really quick intercutting, because it signifies an older time. And I think it even boils down to kind of the way that they did the movie poster. I think a lot of it boils down to that. And I just don't know if any of it really worked for me.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about it. The production design was David Dornberg and art direction by Kat Ulmansik. Again, the production design, I think it's minimal, but it looked authentic to me. It was dirty, and one of the things I found great was that I noticed over and over again, they took real time to make sure that every actor's hands were filthy. Did you notice that?
Well, everything just felt kind of gritty and grimy, and that is something I really give them credit for. The world building here felt really authentic. These wagons felt like actual wagons that they were rolling around in. The dirt, I mean, everybody just grimy and grungy all the time. I really enjoyed that aspect of this film. It felt wholly authentic.
Yeah, Linda Andrews and David Kennedy are key makeup and key hairstylists. Credit to Bruce's hair and Vicky Farrell for costumes. I thought the costumes looked great. It did. It looked authentic. Not much to speak of in terms of effects or stunts, with the exception of the big wagon roll at the end, which was, it was a wagon. It turned over, lost all its wheels. It was very sad.
Maybe that's the climax for you.
Well, it was. I mean, if you're going to have a climax, that's going to be the one, when you lose the wagon.
Going back to before we move past the editing, I do want to just talk one more comment about Kelly and an editing choice that she made that I found so interesting.
Sure.
There's a scene where the wagon train kind of moves on by, and then once they're kind of out of frame, we start this really slow dissolve. It's almost like we don't even know it's dissolving. But then from the right side of the frame, we see a person on horseback kind of riding in way in the distance. But then all of a sudden they're riding like into the sky, and it's like, what is this? Is it like a spirit of a cowboy? Like there's somebody from the wagon train who died? Exactly what's going on here? But then you realize, it's dissolving. It's just such a slow dissolve that it looks like these people are kind of on the wagon train in the sky before it finishes its dissolve, and you realize, they're just on a really distant hill back there. Very strange choice. And I wasn't sure if she was really trying to say something about, the number of people that they had lost on the wagon train, or if she was saying anything. Who knows? It was just an interesting decision that she made.
Yeah, I agree. It goes to this issue that I had with the film, where the pacing suffers from some of these editing choices. I didn't need that. I didn't find it. I didn't get the symbolism. I was impatient.
And that's easy to get in a film like this.
Yeah.
I think if they had started where we actually got a little better sense of the characters, like Lawrence of Arabia, for example, which has some incredibly long shots and incredibly beautiful shots, but there's a lot more about the character before we get to those points. So we have more stake in the game.
That's the rub. The sound is interesting. Sound and music, I would say, were interesting, particularly coming off of Wendy and Lucy again, where there was such great leveraged use of the train sounds and squeaky wheels and things like that. Here, there's a little bit of that in the sound. We hear a lot of these sort of natural sounds of the wheels on the wagon and the creaking wood, crashing wood that comes out of the, out of when she's throwing things out of the wagon. As you already pointed out, there's some, just great sounds of fire and digging and crushing ground, crushing earth. It felt really very grounded and natural to me. And then the music, I think Jeff Grace's score actually supplemented that pretty well in terms of a minimalist approach to sort of augmenting sound. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of film score. I really enjoy themes and big scores, big music. And I enjoy some minimal scores too. This is just so minimal that it's hard to give much or get much sense of its presence. But I do agree that what was there of the score with the sound that was throughout the film, it did kind of have a nice integration and just kind of gave a sense of the just, I guess, the emotional sense of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what it is. And you can actually, I mean, the score was released. You can listen to it. It's very minimal.
Oh, I believe it.
I think it's like 8 tracks. And I sort of, the visual I have is, somebody playing some sort of chords on a wind instrument while on a skateboard, riding past you very slowly and then hitting themselves in the head with a kettle drum. That's kind of what it feels like. And it's good. It's more akin to a guided meditation music than a film score. So I actually listened through a lot of it, and I find myself strangely attracted to it.
Interesting.
How'd this do at award season?
This was it was kind of a festival darling. A lot of people clicked with it. It had 7 wins and 11 nominations at all the different festivals and everything. At the Independent Spirit Awards, it did win the Producers Award for Anish Savjani. And at Venice Film Festival, where it actually premiered, Kelly was nominated for the Golden Lion. However, she lost to Sofia Coppola for her film Somewhere. Kelly did, however, at the Venice Film Festival, win the Cygnus Award, Signis, which it sounds, from reading about it, it sounds like an International Association of the Faithful is what Cygnus is. And it sounds like an award through the Catholic Church that they give to films that kind of represent just kind of the importance of human communication in culture. I'm not exactly sure why it was given to Kelly in this particular film, but there you go.
How about the numbers? Did it make anything? It was a bigger film. I mean, I look at the behind the scenes stuff. It's definitely a bigger crew than we saw on the other Wendy and Lucy.
When you're doing a period film, it definitely requires a lot more money for costumes, for production design. It's just, there's so much stuff you have to build. I mean, you can't use anything that's modern. For Kelly's follow-up to Wendy and Lucy, she did get a bit more money, like you were hinting at there. She got a cool $2 million, which is about $2.14 million in today's dollars. Unfortunately, this may not have been the film for the investors to double up on. The film had a 2-screen release April 8th, 2011, opposite Hannah, the Arthur remake, Soul Surfer, and Your Highness, everybody's favorite pot comedy. Eventually, it made it up to 45 screens, but the film only made about $978,000 domestically and $892,000 internationally, for a total of about $1.9 million, or just over $2 million in today's dollars. This left the film with an adjusted loss per finished minute of $1,338. Luckily, it didn't keep Kelly from making films, as we will discuss next time.
Outstanding. I think it's time. Let's jump right in, Andy, and rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, or you can just swipe over in your podcast show notes, and you will find a link to Flickchart. Just tap on that. It'll take you straight to this movie in Flickchart, and you can add it to your list, and let's see how it stacks up on our collection.
All right, first off, we have Meek's Cutoff or The Road Warrior.
Well,
Warrior.
There's a Road Warrior, road movie head-to-head there. It's Road Warrior for me.
Absolutely. Meek's Cutoff or The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Munchausen for me.
I am also Munchausen.
Meek's Cutoff or The Emigrants, our last listener's choice episode.
Now that is a very fair pairing. I will still choose The Emigrants.
I will too. Meek's Cutoff or Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, I'm delighted to hear your take on this.
I'm going with the monkeys and Shia in the trees.
Ant Hill. I am also Indiana Jones.
All right.
Wow.
Meek's Cutoff or, Meek's Cutoff or The Edge.
Intense
Alec Baldwin and
Alec Baldwin
Anthony
and
Hopkins.
Right. I'm The Edge.
Me too. Meek's Cutoff or Scoop. Woody Allen's magician disaster.
Woody and ScarJo. I am Scoop.
I probably will say Scoop, although I don't know if that's a smart decision here.
There are literally hundreds of movies you will have to watch before you have to make this choice in real life, Andy. Hundreds.
I'd say thousands, Pete. All right. Meek's Cutoff or Under the Cherry Moon.
Oh, Andy, I think it's really clear where I'm going.
I know where you're going. I really
you are
can't,
too.
though.
You are too.
I can't.
Yeah, you are.
I really
Come
can't.
on.
No, I'm not.
You chicken.
I'm not a chicken.
Come on.
I am so sorry, Pete. I really am.
We're at the bottom of the list, man. We're at the bottom of the list, and we've agreed on everything else, and you can't give me this.
All right, I'll give it to you. How's that? You make me feel bad.
The stakes are literally zero, and it's this much work to get you to cave.
I know. Well, I was thinking about it, and it's the fact that at least I can laugh with Prince Under the Cherry Moon. Or laugh at Prince Under the Cherry Moon is more like it. But, at least I'm laughing. So, sure, I'll give it to you.
Jeez.
I know, I'm such a bastardo. All right, Meek's Cutoff or The Women.
I'm going to pick Meek's Cutoff.
Are you?
Yeah.
I actually am going to say The Women. I would rather watch the catty drama. Oh, this is terrible.
Okay. Andy, will give this to you. Look at what gentlemen we are tonight.
Oh, a gentleman bringing Kelly's film to the bottom of our list, 297, which is really funny because on Letterboxd, I don't rank it that low. It's just I didn't like it.
Where did you end up on Letterboxd? What'd you end up with? 2? 2.5?
I gave it 2.5 because I felt like, and actually through our conversation, I actually feel like I'm demoting it a half star. I think I'm going to drop it to 2 because, I think that there's some interesting stuff going on here. I just didn't care for it at all.
See, I was going to say 1.5 stars. You brought it down to 2. I think I can be good with 2. It's not a half-star, 1-star movie. And I can only say that because you have conned me into starting to watch a movie that's legitimately 0 stars. And so this, by comparison, I would absolutely watch Meek's Cutoff again and see if I can get some more out of it. It's just not my. I think that's the peril of our ranking. This movie is probably fantastic, and it's not for me. It is really not for me. I just didn't connect with it, so I'm very much looking forward to where we go from here. But right now, I'll be a solid 2-star.
All right, well there we go. 2 stars it is.
2 stars it is. Okay, so speaking of that, next week we are wrapping up our Kelly Reichardt series with her latest collaboration with Michelle. What is this film?
That's right. It is Certain Women, which just came out last year. I think it's set for a digital/DVD release in July, although I don't know if they have actually confirmed that yet. So it might be a little tricky for people to track down right away and listen to, but certainly you'll have to check it out when you get a chance.
They could watch it. I mean, they could listen to it or watch it, I'm saying.
They can listen to it. Yeah, there you go.
It's at home. You could do whatever you want.
Yes. Right.
Okay. So very excited to talk about that one. We both have seen it, and so we're going to talk about it to wrap up this series. And see, I'm most excited to get back to a contemporary setting, and hopefully there will be some more talking.
Well, I'm curious to see exactly what she does with it, because it's kind of one of those stories with multiple stories all kind of interwoven. This one has 3 stories about 3 different women whose lives kind of intersect. So I'm curious to see how she handles that.
All right, Andy. Well, until Certain Women, I feel like I've earned it. I gotta go to bed.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to go take out my aggressions, and I'm going to roll a wagon down a hill.
Amazon giveth, Andrew.
As Amazon always doeth.
Now, this movie, apparently there are many people who sided with our take on the film, and so it skews negative in the star ratings. And so I think we're both coming at this with a 5-star, aren't we?
Yes, indeed, we are.
You wanna kick it off?
Yes, I've got a 5-star by Phoenix, who says, "Hell is full of bears." This movie is so relaxing. The scenery is beautiful. The talking is kept to a minimum. Often you can't hear or understand what is said. The constant squeaking of the wagon wheels is almost hypnotic. The ending is meant to be ambiguous. It kind of frustrated me at first, but I think I like it now. Definitely not a movie for all tastes, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh man, that was good. I was right in there. The whole time.
It kind of, it lulls you, right?
I would rather hear you read that review again. Can we put that on our flick chart? Andy reads reviews of Meek's Cutoff. My review comes from Catherine, April 25th, 2014, who says, understated elegance. This is a thoughtful movie that will not appeal to people seeking excitement and thrills, nor will it satisfy people who want everything spelled out for them or who need to have the dilemmas of the characters resolved. The narrative follows the trials of a small group of travelers heading to Oregon along the Oregon Trail in the early part of the 19th century, but it is not about their trials. Director Kelly Reichardt sits back and watches these pioneers struggle against their trackless wilderness without explaining anything about them or their ultimate fate. What the movie said to me was that we are all simply moving through life without all the information we need and with no guarantees that we will have outcomes we desire. All we have is our own perceptions about our experiences. Now, that was heavy, and she's kind of calling us out, isn't she? Apparently,
she's calling us.
We are not thoughtful. We need excitement and thrills, and we are clearly not satisfied because we need everything spelled out for us. I would argue that perhaps, her commentary on director Kelly Reichardt sitting back and watching the pioneers. Maybe if there was less sitting back and more active directing, we could have had a film that we attached to a little bit more broadly. You were saying?
Just laughing. Good stuff.
Thanks, Amazon. It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.